All right, we're going to talk about the 7 principles of the Constitution today and look at how the Constitution actually works. The first big principle of the Constitution is the principle of popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty comes from the Latin word popular, meaning the people, and sovereignty meaning rule. It literally means the people rule. It's the belief that people can and should govern themselves. In our document, in our founding document, the first 3 words are "we the people." That means that power ultimately rests in we the people, in the individuals, and we elect those people to rule for us. Rulership is not passed down based on a bloodline or a military coup. It's based on running for office and who we elect. That's popular sovereignty. Number 2 is republicanism. This should be a small r, republicanism. This is not like the political party. This is like a republic is an indirect democracy. The definition for republicanism is that people vote for other people to represent their views in government. You can't really have the whole population vote on an issue. If you do this, you'll constantly be voting all the time, and you'll be in chaos. You'll have mob rule. That's what true democracy is mob rule. Republicanism is a way of voting for people who share similar beliefs to us and then allowing them to vote. This is how we elect our senators and our state representatives and our representatives to the Congress, is through republicanism. Third is federalism. Federalism is the belief that power should be shared between the national and state governments. There are certain powers called the delegated powers, and those are the powers that are reserved to the national government. And then there's the reserved powers, and those are the powers that are reserved to the states and the people respectively. So some powers are national, some are state, and then some are what we call concurrent. Those are those powers that both the national government and state government have. The United States is a federal system of government. This Venn diagram is a great chart explaining this, and you will need to know this Venn diagram, at least in its most basic sense. National powers, power to maintain a military. Only the national government has a military. The states don't have their own military. Even if there is a state militia, Texas can't declare war on Arkansas. It doesn't work that way. The national government has the only power to declare war. A postal system is a national power. Set standards for weights and measures, that's a national power. A dollar is a dollar everywhere. An inch is an inch everywhere. A gallon is a gallon everywhere. That's important. It wasn't always true. At one point in our history, the colonies would have each had their own measurement system. And if you could imagine now how the chaos we would have if every state had a different standard of measurement. Try to buy a gallon of gas, and you don't know how much a gallon is. National government also protects our copyrights and our patents. State powers are those powers that are reserved to the states, such as establishing local governments, county governments, city governments, municipal governments. The ability to set up our schools. Education is a state power, although that's decaying greatly since George W. Bush's presidency with No Child Left Behind. To regulate interstate commerce, intrastate, inside the state. Make regulations for marriage. Every state has their own marriage rules. For years, the idea of gay marriage was a state issue. A state could recognize it, but the federal government couldn't, at least until the federal government made a Supreme Court decision changing that. Establish and regulate corporations. There's different corporate rules in different places. And then the shared powers or the concurrent powers. Both the national government and the state government can collect taxes. Both can establish courts. There's state courts and there's federal courts. There's even city courts and county courts. Regulate banks, borrow money, punish criminals. These are all concurrent powers. The next principle of government is separation of power. This is just the belief that government should be divided into 3 branches: an executive branch, a legislative branch, and a judicial branch. This goes back to the Baron de Montesquieu, a guy named Charles de Montesquieu. And the idea of separation of power is that no one branch should have too much power. The power should be divided, so you can't have a tyranny of one branch. You can't have a king take on all the power, or a legislature like what happened in France take on all the power, or a court like we've seen happen in some places take on all the power. Power is divided. And further than that, we have the next is checks and balances. Not only are each of the three branches separate, but each branch has a check or a limitation on the other two branches. The idea is that if any branch tries to seize control, the other two branches have a way to pull it back. Examples of this are federal judges are nominated by the president. The president nominates who's going to be a federal judge, but Congress, the legislative branch, has to approve them. Bills have to be passed by both houses of Congress. That's the legislative branch. But the president gets to sign it. And then the court can overturn them as unconstitutional. So there's always a check and a balance. This is super important. Limited government. This just means that everyone has to follow the same rules, even members of the government. Congressmen, senators, presidents, and their families are not exempt from the rule. If a representative commits a crime, he or she should face a trial just like anyone else should. Limited government is essential, and we date that back to Magna Carta in the year 1215, which limited the power of the king in England. When we came to our government, we wanted that as well. So we made a limited president. Next is individual rights, and this is super important to me. Our individual rights are our personal liberties, our unalienable rights. To be unalienable means they cannot be taken away from you. These are rights and privileges that we are born with. The Bill of Rights, our first 10 amendments, was created to specifically ensure the rights of the people, the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, or in an earlier form, life, liberty, and property. That's all we have on this section. There will be more to come soon.